Page 24. Up at the top of the page, you notice the part numbers, P80920 and P80910. If you leave the P off of the front, leave that letter off, that's an actual truck light part number. So you could go to the catalog and probably find that, that number in a truck light catalog. Those are actual truck light part numbers for the standard halogen light that we use. The brackets down below, we do make those in steel, aluminum, and stainless steel. You know, the various ones fit various chassis. One of the things that we do like to do is I prefer to have my plow lights mounted to the hood of the truck. And the reason is because we don't get all the vibration off of the push frame. Some people like to mount them to push frame, don't have anything against that if that's what you want, but you do tend to get a lot of vibration off the front of that push frame the way it's pinned up to the truck. It's not rigid, it's pinned up there, and there's a lot of vibration going on. It tends to blow bulbs and stuff like that. The other thing is I like to have them truck mounted because you don't ever have to worry about disconnecting a wire or a connector unless something's wrong with it. If you mount them on the push frame, now you got another electrical connector to keep up with that we all know that once the green monster gets in there, that's the end of that. So, you know, it's just personal preference. Page 25 is pretty much the beacon that we used to use on VDOT. That's not necessarily for you guys' purpose unless you're using that. 26, let's talk about lighting and some of the changes that we made here. One of the things that I want to mention is that several years ago, I can't tell you exactly when, I'm going to say between 6 and 8 years ago, we went from an incandescent light over to an LED light as standard equipment. We just decided to make the change over and go with it. There was a reason behind that. Let me tell you a story about this, because if you ever run into it, you might know how to troubleshoot it. North Carolina DOT, back in the old days when we were using incandescent lights, they were having problems with the brake light element blowing in the rear corner post of the dump bed. Down in between the frame rails, it was doing okay. We thought, well, maybe there's some bad bulbs, maybe there's some bad lights or something like that. And we got to investigating and getting different brands and stuff like that. We still had the same problem, even with a different brand. And it took us a while to figure it out. Let me tell you how simple the solution was. When you've got a load of sticky clay in a tandem dump bed and you raise it all the way up and you can't get that clay to come out, what do? You shake the bed. You pull off and then slam on brakes. Well, when you slam on brakes, what happens? That tailgate hits the back of the bed, and what does it do? It causes vibration on the back of the bed. And that's what was blowing those brake light bulbs or turn signal bulbs in the rear corner post, is because they were slamming the tailgate, which everybody does it, and it wasn't working for them. It was blowing these bulbs. So at that point, you know, it wasn't long after that we decided, well, let's just go with LED. We've been talking about it anyway. Let's just standardize and go with that. And problem went away because an LED doesn't have an element in it like an incandescent bulb does. But if you're having a problem like that, good information to be able to take back with you. If they're slamming those tailgates and you're having problems with these lights in the corner post, change it over to an LED. Problem might go away. All right, the other thing I want you to be aware of is that back in the old days when we were putting the clearance markers on it, this clearance marker here, I'm going to shake it around so you can see, actually has a Class A reflector built into the lens. You can see the prismatic reflector there. It's actually built into the lens. This one looks somewhat like it, but it is not a reflectorized lens. This is not a Class A reflector. So I tell you that to say, if you've got a truck with this on it and you need to change that bulb and you change it out to an LED, now you just lost your reflector, which is, you got to have it on there to be legal. Certain places on the dump bed, you've got to have reflectors on there to be legal. So if you change from one of these bulbs here and change over to a LED bulb, check your chart and make sure that you don't have to have a reflector there at that one place. So just helpful information, trying to keep everybody out of trouble. So just be aware of that. Also, on our wiring harness, and let me get these parts down here. Man, the back keeps getting worse and worse. All right, on the wiring, you guys remember this. I hear grunts going on. This is what we call the spider. About years ago, everybody in our shop nicknames things. We called this the Spider. Well, as of about 6 or 8 years ago, the Spider's dead. We killed the Spider. So you may have some older trucks in your fleet that may have these. We still got parts for them. We'll continue to keep parts for them. But we all know this was a pain in the butt to work on. This was between the rear hinge of the hoist and the dump mechanism of the hoist. Always hard to get to, frustrating, aggravating. You got to line these pins up just right to get everything working right. It was just a pain. But it was a seal wiring harness at the time, and you know, one of the better ones that they had for the time that they had it. But we all know that, you know, everything changes with time. This is one of those things I'm glad changed with time, and I'm sure you are too, because now we're going with more of a straight run wire. So the Spider that we used to have had one input going in it, and then everything else became outputs going out to the various lights and stuff that they control. So the Spider's dead. Now, for the past 6 or 8 years, we have been going with what we call a straight run wiring harness, and this is for a trailer connector I'll talk about in a minute. But down here, when we get your truck, when we get a brand new truck in, it's got the rectangular stop, tail, and turn lights in the rear of the frame to make it legal. We take those lights off and we unplug the connector. This plugs directly into that connector. So we don't have to cut and splice any wires or anything like that. That wire, that main wire is coming down the frame of the truck that plugged into the original tail lights, now plugs into this, a direct plug-in. And it's a Packard Metra Pack is what this one is. And then it goes over to one of these connectors, and if by chance we wanted to add a 6-pin trailer connector, maybe we got some trailers that we need a 6-pin trailer connector on it, we can just wire one of these things in it, just plug it in, all of a sudden magically appears a 6-pin trailer connector. Now, we're not going to send it to you with a connector already wired to it and everything. It's just going to be the harness if you want one. But it's just a matter of unplugging that bad boy and wiring that in there and just plugging it back together. Now, we have dropouts here. We have dropout for backup alarm. We have dropout for for the cluster 3 in the rear of the bed. We have dropouts for license plate light. And then as you go on down, we split. All this is in a molded connector here. So as you go across the rear of the dump bed, this thing splits and goes to left and goes to right. So yellow is what side? All right, green is right side. And this takes care of all the lights in the corner post. Back up, stop, tail, and turn, marker lights high and low, all that stuff. It's all in this molded connector right here. That's where the terminations are. So now we're using a straight run wire here. It's one main wire that just splits off into 2 sections basically, and then terminates with these connectors. Versus the other way of doing it, you had one main wire coming in and it split off into 5, 6 other different wires, and it was a big bundle of wires going across there. Used a lot more copper. So we cleaned this up, basically is what it is. We cleaned this thing up and using this type of a setup now. So this is pretty well standard, should be a whole lot more dependable because we got a lot fewer connections. The other thing here is on the light itself, we have a sealed connection on the light now. Back on the old incandescents we didn't. So now we have a sealed connector on the lights too. So they should last longer as well. So that should help you guys out from that perspective. In the book here on page 26, it shows all the lights that we could have put on your truck and the part numbers, as well as the harness and the part numbers. The one thing I want to tell you here, you might want to make a note of, all these part numbers that are in here, truck light part numbers. All these part numbers listed are truck light part numbers. Leave the letter off the front, the letter P. P means it's a purchase part by us. We don't make it, it's purchased by us. That's what the P stands for. It's a purchase part. But the rest of that number is actually a truck light part number. Now, that being said, the wiring harness itself may have been customized by Truck Light to fit our needs. You might not be able to go down to your local distributor and be able to find this exact harness at the local distributor because the wiring may be a little different on it, or the pinouts, or the different number of plugs or something. Truck Light may have made a modification to this harness that deems a special part number, and they may not sell it to you or anyone else. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Truck Light selling it to you, but that's just the way their system is set up. They choose not to because it is customized for our application. Well, here's the way I look at it is, you know, you can call us to get the wiring harness. It's not going to cost you any more than going anywhere else to buy the thing. We're not going to take advantage of you from that perspective. The customization that was there just made it for what we need, just like this Plow light. You know, the factory Plow light has a 3-foot lead on it. Well, we just don't need that. All we needed was a 6-inch lead. So they did that for us too. That part number that's in there may be our special part number, I'm not sure, but it's in the same family, the AO800 series. So if you go down to the local guy and get a light and it has a 3-foot lead on it, don't worry about it. It's all the same. The only difference is the length of the wire. But in this case, there may be some other things there too that, that you might not be able to get the harness part of it local. You may have to come back to us for that. But page 26 and 27 go together for the lighting, and it shows you the part number, description, and how many per truck that we typically would put on there, depending on how your lights are set up on your truck.